And I want to welcome everybody who is going to be joining with us today or at a later date, as we may do this in a repeated version or smaller versions when we cut this up into different bits and pieces. But I want to thank you for taking the time to watch our 8 steps to seamless software integration. Um, Implementing new software can be one of the most challenging tasks that one will meet in their career, especially when the software affects everybody in their day-to-day working environments for the whole company. And it can be very, very stressful, and we understand that. Software is the kind of foundational element these days of communication and knowledge within a company, and these tools can hold the keys to our wins and losses, right? Our project management software holds critical data for each job. A good CRM will help our sales departments to grow the client base. And the list of types of software can go on and on. And in the construction industry itself, it can be even more complex because, as we know, construction is not the tip of the spear, so to speak, when it comes to adopting new technologies. We've not been good at it, and it's particularly because of the type of people that we are. We like to make sure that it works first before we're actually implementing things, right? Because if we don't do things right in the construction industry, it is very, very dangerous for things. You know, if we don't build the building right the first time, it's not a very good thing. If we don't build the bridge correctly the first time, it doesn't ever end up very well. So some of the softwares we're going to talk about that you may be implementing may have a broad scope. Others may have a narrow scope, right? They may be for one division. More of what I'm going to talk about today is the ones with broad strokes, right? They represent multiple divisions within a company. So the implementation of software must be detailed and it has to be planned thoughtfully so that the users and the evolution as proponents of the change it will bring will then become champions of the product, right? And so that's going to require a bit of significant effort, probably often extra hours to meet the expectations of all involved. So we're going to get some recommendations and suggestions of how you can overcome those obstacles. So without any further ado, we're going to kind of break right into it here. Now, my name is Robert Zimmerman, and I am the Relationship Development Manager here at Austin Lane Technologies. Austin Lane, if you need a little bit of background, we've been providing software services for the last 25 years, and we are an industry leader in digital time and productivity tracking. We are integrated with over 20 major ERPs and payroll platforms. Austin Lane team has supported the integration and rollout to thousands of users across North America. Not only that, there's another division of Austin Lane, which is our MSP division. We're managed service provider with a dedicated team of technicians who service thousands of assets for multiple businesses nationwide and, of course, to our local Texas area. Now, if that's not enough for you to understand, we understand implementation. So if we want to know more about AL Mobile software or our MSP, please feel free to reach out to me and contact me directly. I'll be happy to get you in the right direction, knowing more either about AL Mobile or ALIT. Happy to help. So today, we're just going to talk about challenges and the plans needed for your next software integration, regardless of brand or type. Right? We're not talking about AL Mobile today. We're talking about just software integrations in general. Right? I may mention AL Mobile a time or two just because that's my experience. But whatever you're trying to implement, these are great steps in order to kind of make that happen in a timely manner. Okay. Our 8 steps are very, very simple, very common sense. And some of this you may say, well, okay, yeah, I know all this. Yes, you may know all this, but you would be surprised at the number of people who don't kind of follow these 8 steps. They skip steps or they don't put the right amount of work in. Today, we're going to go through them kind of one at a time here in the next 45 minutes, just trying to explain and give you a little bit of highlight about where you're going to see some obstacles and those types of things. So the first thing you need to have on a good, successful software implementation is a why. Just like any business, why are you doing business? Why are you doing this? Why are you putting in this software, right? And so that's the first step in that. The next step is we're going to talk about the challenges, the obstacles, the impediments, the things that you are probably most likely going to see in a software implementation. The next thing we're going to talk about is the needs, right? Now, the needs is where you're going to be evaluating your software. We're going to talk in depth about that for construction companies because that's who we deal with. That's what this is about. This is about construction technology and the implementation of construction technology or construction software. The fourth part of this will be called the plan. And again, until you've figured out whatever your why is, and I apologize, my phone keeps going off over here. I should have shut it off. Before you start talking about a plan of how you're going to roll something out, you really need to know, one, what it is, two, why you're doing it, and three, what you're going to run into when you put that out. So the plan comes forth. Integrated with that is going to be the team, the people around you, the people that you're going to put in to help with the plan and make sure that the needs and the challenges are all met, right? And then we're going to get into those last three, which are really the kind of the action steps, the place where you're trying to get to, which is one, the migration. That's the data migration. If you're moving from one software platform to another, you're going to have data that you want to transfer over. And then the second half of that is the rollout, meaning go live, right? That means when everybody or the incremental portions start using the software, that's the rollout. And the last part we're going to talk about is what I like to call the measure. Some people call it the metrics. All right. A lot of folks skip this part, but I'm going to tell you right now, the measure, this last part, is very, very important for your next rollout. And it's going to teach you a lot about how that software is working. It's going to teach you a lot about how we can improve. Okay. So don't skip this last step. All right. So let's keep going here. The why. So why do we do this? Why do we need new software? You are going to get that question in the construction industry. You're going to get it from probably 10 to 15 different people as you go through your process, maybe more. All right. That's why you need to have it clarified right out front. Now, as you see the little statistic up here, fragmented data, 95% of data collected goes unused due to siloed systems that prevent data flow between departments. And that is a tragic number because your data is your most important asset that you have. And construction people may disagree, right? They may disagree with that. They may say, no, that our people are our most important asset that we have. Well, yes, on one side of the coin, you've got the people that use the data that are very, very important. But if you do not have the data, then you cannot measure what you're doing, right? You can't measure. And if you've got 95% of it collected and you're not using it, that is a tragedy in itself because you've got so much ready to go. Next thing is their construction is run into 75% of construction projects run over budget and 77% are under delivered. Right? They're delivered late. This is cost. This is big money. And this is holding you back, right? This is another reason why. So I'm giving you kind of the negatives here. And then when next show, I'm going to talk about the positives, what software can do. Now, everybody knows this, or if you don't know this, I'm going to just let you know, labor productivity has only increased 1% per year over the past 2 decades. Right? For the construction industry, 1% per year over the past 2 decades. With all of our technology and everything that we do, right? We've only increased productivity. And that seems rather odd. It seems like the more technology we should add, the more productivity we should get, right? It's supposed to be helping us move us in the right direction. If it's not, then we really need to take a close look at what we're using, right? And that's why maybe we need to improve or need to add something new. Safety and compliance. Software has been shown to reduce safety incidents by 47%. This is a good thing across the board. It doesn't matter what it is. The safer you can work, the more productive you can work. So software will reduce by 47%. Next, we're going to talk about 46% of construction companies report that their current systems struggle to handle growth. Well, of course they do. And it may be because we didn't get a good research in on it. We didn't follow 8 steps to get the current software that we've got in here, right? Maybe you didn't figure out what the why was. Maybe you weren't prepared for the challenges, and maybe your objective was the wrong objective, right? We didn't research it enough, and we didn't come up with a good enough plan, right? So you got the wrong software, or you got something that didn't meet all of your needs. The next thing is waste. 30% of construction waste results from inefficient project planning and execution. Okay, there's tons of software out there, construction management software, project management software that can be implemented to kind of help in this area. And we're going to talk about that. But here's a few kind of reasons why, but there are even more reasons why that you can look at, because accessible data amongst many different divisions within a construction company can create some serious gains. And I'm going to look at it. You can reduce costs from 10 to 17%. Those are big numbers, right? You can increase your productivity 15 to 25% because of some of these software integrations used properly. Your safety and compliance can go up 25%. So reductions in workplace accidents can go up 25%. Obviously, 30% time savings can increase your scalability, because if you got 30% more time to do other things, you can get to more projects faster, right? And of course, if you're completing the projects faster, if they're 50% project completion time, guess what? That's even going to give you even more time. So all of these factors go in place. So here's your whys, and you can pick some of these, you can come up with some of your own, but you need to establish why you need the software, all right, and the areas where you need to focus on, because again, when you start to measure it, then you're going to know where to measure it from. So let's move on to the next thing, the challenges that's going to come across, all right? The first challenge that you're going to have, especially if you have an existing software that you're trying to transfer into something new, is you're going to have some compatibility issues, right? Maybe it's not in the same language. Maybe the data is a little bit different. It wants you to structure it differently. You're going to have some compatibility stuff that's going to come into play, and you want to make sure that the software that you're picking is compatible with what you're doing, and maybe there's an easy transfer of the information to make that compatibility issue kind of go away. Next thing you're going to talk about, legacy systems, and there are a ton of them out there, right? This is older software that's been picked. I know that there are some softwares that are up to 50 years old, meaning they were written 50 years ago and, either cobbled together, blocked together, those types of things to make them work now, but they're just older. And at the time when they were purchased, they were supposed to handle everything, every aspect that you had, and they just don't play well with others, right? Well, that can be a good or a bad thing depending on your company, and you need to decide whether that works for you. The current standard in the industry is to find programs or softwares or technology that can integrate with other technology. Because again, we're creating links of communication. We don't want any more siloed data over here and over here. We want them to talk to each other so that then they can become more efficient. So legacy systems is something you probably run into, especially if you've got a company who's been using the software for a long time. Data accuracy and consistency. This will come up, and we're going to talk more about this in the migration portion, that step. You're going to do some stuff where you're going to have to clean up your data. You're going to have to make sure that it's accurate. You're going to do some validation. And so we're going to talk more about that. But that's a challenge that you're going to run into, and you're going to have the right people to be able to pull that together and to make sure your data is correct. Now, a big one, and all of these equally have their share in what you're going to run into. They're all challenges. A big one today is this security and compliance portion, right? So we talked about inconsistent data, but security and compliance, people are getting hacked, kind of left and right. And the construction business, I'm not going to throw out a bunch of statistics for you, but the construction business is very, very vulnerable at multiple levels to hacking. And the last thing that you want to interrupt your productivity, your progress, your whole business is a ransomware attack. Because when your systems go down and you can't access it, it is a problem. And it is a very, very big problem. And everything then focuses on that problem. Everything else stops, right? You may still have guys out in the field working and going, but if you cannot move money, you can't move files, you can't do anything, you're stuck at the office. It won't be too long before the folks out in the field will be stuck as well. You do not want a ransomware attack or a hack to be affecting your business. So security and compliance will be a huge challenge It will be something that you want to spend a lot of time on and making sure that it's correct. And of course, last but not least, we're going to talk about cost and complexity. And maybe it's cost versus complexity, but I think cost and complexity go together. Um, Cost for a more robust software is going to be higher. I don't want anybody to live in a fantasy land and think that they're going to find a great deal because this thing works awesome and no matter what, and it's super cheap. I don't think that that exists in the market today, and I doubt that it's ever going to exist. Robust software requires a lot of work on the back end, requires a lot of development, a lot of thought, and that stuff will need to be paid for and covered. Whether it's you're talking about even just hardware, servers to make sure that the SaaS business is intact and fully ready to go. It's got redundancy and it's got all of the things that you need for your security and compliance and everything that you need to make sure that your data is accurate and consistent. That takes a lot of work, which adds dollars to the price tag. Okay. Now, I'm not saying that if you go out and buy the most expensive thing on the market, that it's going to serve you. But what I am saying is that it's going to be one of those factors that you're going to have to consider. And I would probably never say lowest bidder wins here, because the construction market has always been that way. The construction market says, oh, well, lowest bidder wins because that's what I want. Not when you're picking software. All right. What you want to do is you want to pay the price for the thing that's going to solve 80% of your problems, right? That's what you want. You're never going to find the perfect software, but you're going to want to pay the price that's going to solve at least 80% of your problems. Okay. So those are your challenges. So let's move on to that next step, right? Which we're going to call the need step. Now, I think need step is probably where you should spend most of your time working on it. Obviously, you're going to talk about the why. You're going to spend a few days on, hey, why are we doing it? Probably that's going to be fairly obvious to you. And then you're going to talk about the challenges, right? Okay, well, we're looking at this, this, and this, right? But when you're talking about the challenges, that's pretty much going to define what your needs start to do for you. Now, I'm going to go into more detail on this because I think this is where you're going to need to spend most of your time in order to find the right software for you. Okay. So I'm not saying one software is going to solve all your problems, but if you've got a nagging area within your construction business that needs help, then spending your time and your needs is going to be where you want to spend most of your time to get the best results. So first of all, you're going to map your core processes, right? Core processes in construction, there are three areas that we're going to go through here in just a second that I want to talk about. There's the pre-construction process, right? There's the construction process, and then there's post-construction, right? That's kind of that job-oriented look. It's like I have a job that I just sold, right? Or I'm looking to sell. I've got a pre-construction process that I've got to go through. Maybe there's some areas there where we've got some bottlenecks that we need some help software-wise. In the construction process, I'm sure there's tons of areas in project management, construction management, payroll, those types of things where you need to be able to streamline some of those. So there's areas there. All right. Obviously what you want to be looking for maybe is something that integrates maybe some current software that you have that can help, move that along, make that software that much better. Okay. But you need to map out those core processes. The last process of obviously in construction is that post-construction, when you're starting to close out work and doing punch lists and doing those kind of things. Well, will your software help you get there where you need? So again, map out your processes, and then you can kind of pinpoint the areas where you're seeing bottlenecks, maybe areas where you need help. Second is you're going to talk about your objective from this, right? You're going to notice that you've got areas where you need help and say, what is the objective? What are we trying to achieve with said software? Or if I'm looking at a problem, what's the objective? How the solution to that problem resides in this objective, right? So you need to set that, right? You're going to set specific goals. Obviously, these are going to tie back to your why. They're going to, they're going to be related to your challenges. And then you're going to evaluate each one of those different softwares. So you're probably going to pick 3, maybe 5. I probably wouldn't do more than that because, again, you'll get bogged down in paralysis by analysis. So I would say pick your best 3, right? You're going to evaluate 3, and then you're going to choose one out of those 3. You can spend a lot of time. You can spend a ton of time going out researching more products, right? And it is going to drive you crazy, right? So try to narrow it down to your best three, right? And again, I'm not saying that there may not be a better software out there, but again, the time that you spend in this, it becomes a diminishing returns if you spend way too much time. And then also within that, see if there's key features that maybe that software, one software might be working great, and maybe there's some features in there that that moves over into multiple departments where then it really does start to encompass a whole problem, right? And really solves problems for a bunch of different people. So you might be able to find that as well. But do your research and get it down to your three and then evaluate. All right. So let's talk about construction in general, though. All right. Because if you're mapping out your processes, right, sometimes your processes look like this. It's like a bunch of little gears all over the place that are kind of maybe not running together, right? Maybe your business development is lagging, some part of their sales process is lagging, needs some help there, right? Or quite honestly, your bidding or estimating department needs a little bit of help. It's over here working. Well, maybe we need better contract negotiation and maybe looking at the details. There's quite a few products coming out now that are do great jobs at looking at contracts and helping with scope and things like that. And then, of course, you've got your pre-construction planning, which are feasibility studies. Feasibility studies are very, very important, right? Because sometimes there are jobs you may not be able to do, or they're not cost effective to do. Maybe you need some help with that. Maybe the software that you're looking for is in there. But again, you want these things. Maybe that's a narrow scope, or maybe you can find something that has a broader scope that helps with these areas, to make this communication better. Maybe you're helping with project design with a BIM application, permitting and compliance, zoning, safety, regulatory. So all these different steps are in that kind of pre-construction area. So we want to be able to organize those so they're all communicating well together. Maybe that software is you're looking for. And then you move into the construction portion of your job, right? This is kind of the meat and potatoes area, right? Where the job is really getting done, right? You've got to mobilize your stuff. You got to get your signage out there. You got to temp structures, electrical. You get ready to start to, so soil tests are then all done. Now you're getting ready to start really, digging foundation, pouring piers, doing things like that. Then you've got, your labor management that's all involved with that. Many different areas in construction. And this is why when software comes into play and we start talking about things that help the processes of construction, well, I've already mentioned a whole list of things that may have totally different functionality, but are absolute necessities when it comes to completing a complex construction job. And one software may not be the absolute solution to that, right? One software probably won't do all that. There may be multiples. Well, if we're picking softwares and we're trying to get things integrated so where there's no more data silos, right? We're going to want to pick something that pulls it all together. Like a good project management software may not cover some of the things that are going on within the bidding process, right? But it may be able to communicate with what you're using in bidding. And so those are the things that you're going to have to be deciding on as you're evaluating your needs, right? Obviously, if you can get the correct gear in the right place from your software to help things move along, it's going to be much better for you. And then when we move into core processes here, as far as post construction, you get down to the end of the job. Everybody knows that a punch list sometimes seems to go on forever and ever. Maybe you need some help with that. Maybe you need some help with just getting things commissioned, everything started up, running correctly, tested. Everything's working within tolerance, handoff to the client, those types of things. And then, of course, you may need some stuff. I don't know how many things I've listed here, 15, almost 20 maybe, of items that are maybe totally separate applications within the construction process, right? Or pre-post, all the construction industry. And you think one software is going to solve all that? Probably not, right? So you're going to want to figure out a way to get this software integrated so that it speaks to one another so that you can have a system that runs together, right? Get all the gears in place so everything's moving in the right direction. And that's what you're kind of looking for. All right. So we've gone through the why. We know why we're doing this. We know what the challenges are. we've evaluated these, we've selected a software. Okay. So those are the first three steps. We've spent a lot of time in that needs section because that is where you want to put that. You want to put that work in up front, right? Now that you've got this, you've got a plan, and then you've got the team. Now I could have put these two, 4 and 5, together. It could be, the plan and the team, but I want to separate the two out. And you're going to need to be selecting the team and putting the plan together. So I'm going to put the plan here first. You're going to get a basic outline of the plan, but then we're also going to talk about the team as well. So these kind of go together, 4 and 5. But the start, that objective is the start, right? You make your plan based upon what are we trying to achieve? What is our objective, right? And then you're going to talk about your people, your team, right? But I'm going to go into more detail about the team in just a second, right? The right people will make all the difference, okay? And they're going to need to be like-minded and accountable for that project success, all right? If they are not the right person for the job, if they are out there, if they're not, don't try to force them in, all right? And then number 2, don't try to take this job on all by yourself. And I have seen it happen. Okay, I have seen it where somebody has given a directive from leadership that has gone down to a very, very, large company or medium-sized company and said, okay, we're going to roll out this software and I want you to do it. Okay, and that's one person, and then that weight is just all over that one person. Okay, that's what this is also about too. Do not try to take this on by yourself. You're going to need a team of people to roll out a successful software. All right. The reason why 70% of software rollouts fail, 70%, is because one person cannot grasp the scope of what's going on. I'm giving you a bit of an idea here in these 8 steps, the scope of what's going to happen. And that leads us to our schedule. All right. And the reason is the schedule gets pretty heavy. And why is the schedule important? Well, it's important because you're in the business of construction and not necessarily the business of rolling out software, right? You've got a day job that you're already doing. So adding on a software implementation may be very, very taxing. So you're going to need to share the load, which is more the reason why you need a team. And that team can then help come up with a realistic time and some milestones and a calendar that can be kept and monitored, right? You can measure that success, right? And even for the next one or for the next project, you can be realistic about, hey, this is our goal. This is our milestone. We need to meet this. What's it going to take to get us there? We need to write that stuff out. We got to create this plan and we got to create a schedule for it. If you don't put dates to it, it won't get done. Last part about the team here on this is you're going to need technical support. Okay. Not only are you going to need technical people to help you get this thing up and running, but you're also going to need, the machines, the cabling, the equipment, the connections, the security measures. You're going to need the technical folks. So get them involved early. Do not wait to get them involved. Get them involved early in this process. Make them a part of your plan, right? Make them help you. Okay. Getting them involved early is the best thing you can do. Now, I know these things all sound like common sense, but you would be very, very surprised about how many times I walked in and said, what about this? What about this? What about this? I start asking the question about who's involved here, who's involved there. And some folks seem to be like, well, I didn't know anything about that part, or that's not my job kind of thing. When you're in the process of putting together a software, a rollout, everybody needs to be, who's especially a part of this rollout team, everybody needs to be a trainer, right? And so this whole front end section is really about training the trainers. You've selected the software, you're going to roll it out, you're starting that implementation. You need everybody who's engaged in this to start becoming adept enough at the software to become a trainer, right? Because they're the ones that are going to then become your champions and push it out into the field. So this is that train the trainer part of your plan. Like, when are we going to train? How many hours are we going to spend, right? When are we going to go back and review? Because maybe people forget, right? When can folks get together? I would doubt that everybody on the team, especially since you've got jobs that you're already doing, that everybody's going to be able to get together at the same time every week, or maybe you need to split it up. These are the parts of your plan that you need to put in there. when you're going to get together, when you're going to make it happen, and really focus on the software that you're getting ready to implement itself. So create a training plan for your trainers. Okay. And then the last is get that test environment up and going as well. You're going to need your technical support people to help you with that. Get the test environment. Do not just turn it on and try to go. There is nothing more stressful than having a live environment and leadership breathing down your neck going, well, you got the thing up, you got it ready to go. Why are we having so much trouble? Because one, your setup's going to be all wrong. You're going to spend way more time trying to fix it. Most likely it's going to end up being a bust because you're going to figure out that it was far bigger than you could chew, right? You want to put this in a test environment, a place where you can go where if you make a mistake, it's not going to bust you, right? What's going to happen is you're going to make a mistake. You're going to be able to fix it and then come back and review, come back and review. You're going to get good at it first. That's the test environment. Get good at it. Get a place to train folks. Get good at using the software before you roll it out, right? This is vital, right? Use test environments, right? And it will avoid any catastrophic outcomes. All right. So we're about 30 minutes into this thing, and we've talked about the first 4 steps, okay? Oh, there's a little chat there. Do not just press the button and go. Yeah, do not. So I am reading the chats. Obviously, if you guys want to send me a message, I do like to see that you're out there. And so thank you very much. Next part of this, we're going to go in. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the team. And like I said, the team and the plan go together. All right. So 4 and 5 really could have been, put together, but I want to get detailed on the team here for you. Now, the team is not one person, right? The team is a team for a reason, meaning everybody has to work together in order to make this work. And I'm going to tell you the key players. First one is the implementation director, right? In my world, a lot of times that is a payroll person, or sometimes it's the CFO, sometimes it's the controller, other times it could be an administrator, right? But that one person cannot be the only person. There needs to be more people that step up and are part of the decision-making process or the decision consulting process, right? But ultimately, what I would say the implementation director is the final decision, okay? They are able to take all the information from the team and evaluate a final, right? And make sure that the project directives are met, okay? So you're going to have that. But in conjunction with that, you have to have leadership, okay? Leadership, as you can see, have 2.5 times the success rate. If you've got a leader, a CIO, a CFO, a CEO, you got somebody from leadership that is driving, you got your back, right? You're more likely, you're 2.5 times more likely to make sure that this is a successful rollout. Okay. So there has to be a person there. Now, I want leadership to remember this. Okay. You are backing this project, but you are letting your team make the decisions and run with the ball. You're letting them do their work, right? That's the reason that you put them there. You're not running the ship. What you're doing is you're saying, I got your back, maybe a little advice back here on the side, that kind of thing. But don't try to take this over, right? This is, you got their back. This is what we're doing. This is what we're doing. I put this person in charge. Give it a listen, right? Next, you've got your champions, okay? That's the folks that are going to become your trainers, right? That may be 3 people, that may be 10 people. That depends on the scope of your work. But each department, especially if you're going to multiple departments, you're going to have 2, 3 to 4 people in each department that are going to have to become product champions because they're going to want to be able to roll this out to everybody that is going to be a part of this. And you're going to need that help. And the implementation director is not going to be able to get to everybody in every department. One person cannot do that job. So you're going to need to create your champions. And then last but not least, final piece of that puzzle is your technical support people. Again, these people are going to know what it takes to get this thing going in the background and get it up and running. And if there is an issue, those folks are going to need to be ready to go to support the product. Okay. They're going to need to support the infrastructure behind the product to make this happen. They're going to have to make that work. So again, these 4 team portions, they're absolutely necessary. Okay. If you've got a different structure and you think it needs to be just three, I'm going to say I doubt it. Been through this a ton of times. This is what is needed. All right. You need a director. You need a leader who is behind that director, right? You need product champions, more than one, more than two, probably. And you're going to need some technical support, maybe a couple of technical support folks that can understand the product, understand how it works, understand how it gets ready to be migrated and rolled out. All right. So there's your team. Again, they all have a why. They understand the challenges, right? They've helped select, right? You've gone to them for advice about the needs and the evaluation, hopefully early. And then they've also been a part of the plan and they're part of the team. If you've got a member that you want to be a part of the team, but does not want to be a part of the team, just doesn't have time for it, don't put that person in. Don't make them a part of the support and rollout team. And here's why. They will be nothing but a drag on the process. As much as you may like them, you will probably hate them by the end of the process because they will be a drag on this. And it's not because they're bad people. It may just be because they're way too busy. All right. So I want to talk about that a little bit and your timeline. You again are in the process of being constructors. You're in the construction business. And I don't care if you're an electrical contractor or if you're a mechanical contractor or a drywall contractor, your core focus is really what you're trying to do in your day-to-day business and really not rolling out software. No matter how much that software might help, you're going to spend the time on your core focus. So I want you to remember that you're spending time on your core focus. So your scheduling, all those kind of things are going to have to be in off hours or downtimes. If you've got a person that is like, I absolutely have no time for this, find somebody else. Do yourself a favor, find somebody else that's willing to step into the role or better suited to step into the role, because then that will be better guaranteed. Now, you may need to get leadership involved in this process. This is where the leadership role comes in, to talk to that person. That may just be an absolute necessity. We may need them to talk to that person and guide them in the right directions to figure out a way where we can block time where they can be a part of it. That would help. But I would say if it comes down, push comes to shove, what you want to do is get people that are excited about the project and want to make it move forward. That will help leaps and bounds in your success in this implementation that you're working towards. Now, those 5 things is going to be where, if you spend a lot of effort and a lot of time in those 5 areas, the why, the challenges, the needs, the plan, and the team, it's going to make these last 3 very, very simple, right? It's going to make them easy, right? If you do not spend enough time in the 1 through 5, 6, 7, and 8 are going to be absolute hell. And you're not going to like it. Okay. Most likely you're going to end up in that 70% category that has a failed implementation. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time just on talking about this migration. You're talking about your data. All right. Now, number 1, don't use live data. You need to back it up. Now, there's Veeam backups, replication, Azure, Acronis. There's a bunch of products in there that, you can back up your stuff. Okay. So won't go into that, but just again, back it up. There's a 3-2-1 process. Basically, back up your data in 3 different files. Keep 2 of them in one area and keep 1 away from everything. So you want to use that 3-2-1 method, or want to know more, you can obviously reach out to me and I can talk to you about it. Second part of this process is your data audit. Your implementation director is going to have to choose, methods for auditing the data and people to help audit the data, right? Your technical team will probably most likely be involved on one side of this, and then a couple other folks. Say if you're doing a payroll audit, those types of things, you're going to have a technical member, and then you're also going to have some payroll folks that are going to be involved in, how does the data look? Is it ready to go? Is it ready to move? And then before the migration and using your test environments, what you're going to want to do is you're going to run tests on small subsets of data, right? Do not Go back to the do not just press the go button, right? Run small sets of run small integrations. Make sure that your mapping's right, your data formats are correct, and that the system is compatible with your multiple levels of data. All right. And like I said, these are very general terms, but these are just kind of common sense ideas of and reminders of, hey, these are kind of the things that you want to do. Use them as you will, but these are 3 steps in here that will absolutely help you when you're moving that data over and making sure that it's correct, right? Because once it's in the live system, if it's not correct, going back is not a good deal, right? You don't want to have to go back and correct here and there. Minor corrections in the live system are fine, but major corrections like data corrections or things like that, that becomes very, very difficult and very, very stressful. Obviously, what you want to eliminate is that level of stress that you don't need. You already got plenty of stress in your day job. You don't need the stress of, just running willy-nilly. So we've gone through everything. We've spent a lot of time on those first 5, right? And then the data is ready. You've got it ready for the migration, right? And so you've migrated data over. It's ready to move into what we call the go live. All right. Here's the things. There's 4 things here I want you to understand. And like I said, they may be somewhat similar, but I want you to understand here's the things you have to have ready for that day of go live, right? You need your trainers to be ready to go and be ready to help, right? And they're going to be helping the implementation director. Your champions are going to be helping the implementation director track on everybody, right? And you're going to be training during that time too, still, because some people, as number 3 will state, some people are going to struggle before they struggle. But you're going to have the trainings ready to go. Everybody's going to be trained up as much as they can, be ready for this rollout date, getting user adoption up, levels up to high. You're gonna have your support channels open. They know who to call. They know where to go to look for things. If they can't see the data in front of them, they may know where to go. They've got access. They've got support. And then usage analytics. Okay, so you're gonna want to be able to watching the software, who's on, who's doing what. Again, I've seen it time and time again where you don't even get past step 1 and everybody's calling in going, I can't even log in, right? Well, that's going to be very, very frustrating. So again, one person can't handle all that. You need the team ready to go, able to help those few that they're going to struggle before the struggle begins, right? And then you're going to want to listen. Now, I know number 4 of this is going to be probably the most difficult step that you can take. It's that feedback loop, because you've already put a ton of work into this, especially if you're on that team. You're a champion, you're an implementation director, even leadership. You're going to look at it and go, man, we went through all this work, but I'm still getting complaints. Guess what, folks? That is the price of admission to a software implementation at a large level. It's just going to happen, and you cannot let it get to you. You're going to have some thick skin, and you're going to have to listen, right? You're going to have to listen to it. You cannot get angry. You're going to have to listen. You have to take the feedback, and you're going to have to turn it and make it into a better situation. Sometimes the complaints are valid. Sometimes they're not. You're going to have to take both at the same face value and make that work, right? Look for suggestions and improvements, right? Number 1 thing here, and I'm going to talk about this in my pro tip section here at the end, celebrate your wins. Somebody does something right, celebrate it just for a moment. Congratulations, a good job, man, you're on your way, thumbs up, those types of things. Those are great things. People enjoy that, right? So again, celebrate your wins. You're going to have a ton of obstacles, but you got to celebrate your wins. That is one huge thing that I want to continually reiterate is celebrate your wins as you go through this process. All right, now we've gone through the rollout. We're at the very last stage here, which is the measure, okay? So the rollout, you've got your first team, and I was like, incremental rollouts, first team, meaning that first section of folks that's going to be using this software, you get them up and you get them going, right? And during that time, you're monitoring, right? You're collecting feedback, you're documenting issues, you're correcting small areas. Then at that same time, you're prepping. That information is helping you prep for team number 2 and getting a date schedule for when that rollout will go. And the reason I got the little calendar on there and say that you're going to schedule that date, because you're going to need to evaluate adoption time here. right? So you're going to evaluate adoption time. You cannot say, hey, by the way, I'm going to do this week and this week and this week, and that's just the way it's going to go. No, you need to evaluate your problems as you go here. So you're going to see what the adoption time is for this new software in that first group. That's why you're going to do it in increments. Now you're prepped for team 2. You've got your information. You've made some corrections, and then you're ready to move in to the second team, right? You've got a date set. Second team comes up. As the second team comes up, you're going to do the same thing you did with the first team. You're going to keep your support portals open. You're going to keep your trainers ready to go to answer questions, make sure everybody's good, right? Once that's going on, then we're going to be prepping for team 3. Now I'm going to say something you may not like. If you get to this third section where you're rolling out to your third level and you're still seeing problems that you had in your first, you didn't solve your problems or you didn't do enough work in stages 1 through 5. Okay. There was something missing in your needs or your plan that didn't, get caught. Most of the stuff's going to get caught in that first, I would say 80%, maybe 90% of the stuff's going to get caught in those first 5 steps. This last step during the rollout and in this measure is going to catch that last bit of information, right? It's going to catch any of the obstacles or impediments. If not, that means that maybe you didn't quite spend enough time on your preparation, right? I would not blame the software at this point because y'all selected it and it's not doing what it did. And you didn't do enough research at the beginning to make sure that it was meeting all your needs. But we're going to say that the steps have worked for you. You spent enough time in 1 through 5. You've checked your data in the migration. Everything's looking good. By team 2, you're ready for team 3 to get started. You've selected a date for team 3 to get started, which may be the rest of the company or the last, folks that are needed in another division, whatever. You're going to do the same thing. You're still going to measure their timeline. You're going to look at document their issues if there are any. Or you can let them know, hey, here's some things you may see, and they'd be able to explain it. But hopefully by that time, you'll have success with the rollout. You've got multiple people using it. You're sharing your data. You're sharing your information across the board. And now it's time to document that process, okay? When you document this is going to help you with either new hires, any kind of retraining, any kind of those types of things, any kind of obstacles that you may end up seeing in another rollout of a different software or a different technology. You may be able to use these steps in order to get past that, and using this documentation can help. All right. So there we have it. We've talked about the 8 steps. We've talked about the why, 1 or 2 good reasons why we need to do this, right? We talked about the challenges that you're going to run into. We've also talked about that needs analysis. This is important when you got needs over wants, right? Some things you want to have, but here's what we really need. Let's get those focused in so we can create that objective, right? We need this from this software in order to get this objective achieved. The plan, right? Using your challenges, your needs, your why, you're trying to come up with a plan and a team to go with it, right? That then creates, hey, this is how we're going to make this thing happen. This is how we're going to create success for this software that is then going to create success within the company and the processes that we're trying to do. Then we're going to move into the actual meat and potatoes of the whole thing. We're going to migrate that data over and get ready for testing and use it to test and make sure this is ready to go for date of rollout. We got our champions ready to go. Everybody's been trained up. They're ready for that rollout to start. And it's for team 1, they're ready to go. And they've got their support channels open. And then we're going to start measuring how successful is this? How is this improving our processes? Is this working? What tweaks do we need to make, right? And there's 8 steps. Now you've got it going. Now you've got a cycle, right? Last but not least, are just a few pro tips here of things that, might help you along your way in your journey here. Talk to your neighbor. You may have a friend, a peer group, maybe some case studies out there of implementing software. You might hear some horror stories, right? I'm sure you will. With 70% of failed software attempts, I'm sure you're going to hear some horror stories. Well, use those to your advantage and make sure you don't make the same mistakes. Talk to your neighbor. Put together that dedicated support team. Make sure everybody's on the same page, right? Make sure they all have the time to dedicate to this, and make sure that leadership is involved so that they can approve some overtime if needed, approve the extra time. Make sure people are compensated for what they do. Minimizing downtime is a part of try to work during those slow or non-peak hours, right? If you need to make up some time with some extra hours, plan it, right? So that it's just not thrown on people. Oh, we need to work some extra hours. Try to plan that out. And don't think that everybody's going to be able to make that same planned time. You may have to break it up into, 2 or 3 different meetings sometimes. Start small, learn big. Okay, this is that incremental development that we're talking about, especially when it comes to migrating data or solving problems. Problem solving 101 is to say that if you're trying to troubleshoot something, don't change 3 things and expect to know which one of the 3 caused the outcome. Change one thing at a time and then see what the outcome is. Change another thing, see what the outcome is, right? If you change 4 to 5 things and then try to see what the outcome is, you're not going to know which one of the 4 to 5 things that you just changed in your test was actually working. One thing at a time. And trust me, we're all guilty of doing that. We're rushing. We're trying to make sure it happens. Be patient with this process, right? So start small, learn big, be patient. Leverage user friendly. Okay. That last part of this, when I started talking about cost at the early part of this segment, I started to talk about you're going to find some areas where you're going to find software that's more expensive but does more, right? You're also going to find software that's more expensive that has great UI UX. Okay, that means it's got a great user interface and the experience is better. You're going to pay more for that, but I'm going to guarantee you, when you find a software company or a piece of technology that has a good UI UX, is going to be a great return on your investment. It's going to be more intuitive. It's going to be ready to use, kind of out of the box. So be prepared for that, but leverage that user-friendly stuff because it's going to help you, especially in the rollout portion and the training portion in the long run. The user-friendly products are going to do better, right? And last but not least, and I've said this before, document it. Document everything. It's going to help you with future training. It's going to help you with future implementations. It's going to be your saving grace in situations where you're going to be able to compare and contrast. And it's going to tell you, if in your documentation, part of that is that measure. It's going to tell you where you were successful and maybe where you weren't, maybe where you need some improvement. All right. So we've covered a lot of stuff here in the last 52 minutes. I want to thank you all for joining me today. And I sincerely hope that these kind of common sense steps are going to aid you in your upcoming software transitions, right? I know you got them coming up. If you need any help with them or you need any advice, I'm obviously here to reach out with me for questions. If you're interested in AL Mobile or ALIT, obviously you can call me or you can email me at r.zimmerman@austinlane.com. Again, thank you for attending this webinar. And if you're watching the repeat, that's totally fine too. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to watch. And we hope that you have a great weekend, and year. And here's to all of your upcoming successes. And we'll talk to you all very, very soon. Thank you.